not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California. Member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. I'm going to need your help this week, folks. So everything is different. Wednesday last week, I decided, you know what? Time to shake things up. I don't think I'd moved any furniture in my office in, God, I don't know. It could be as much as 10 years. So I decided to completely throw everything into the wind and see where it lands. Come up with something new, a different layout, something to just keep things fresh. Wow. Screwed up everything. I thought, yeah, I could do this in a couple of hours. 4 days later, 5 days later, still fighting the good fight to try to get the office back in shape. It looks like a tornado went through here. Now, the big pieces of furniture are where I think I want them. I'm still not 100% sold on not facing the window, which I'm not facing the window now. The window's actually kind of to my right. But I disliked the idea of having all my stuff huddled against the window. I kind of wanted to open that up a little bit. Anyway, that is not your problem. The reason why I need your help, not to move furniture for me or to help clean up my office and get rid of all this junk. No. Now that I have moved everything, I've been fussing around with getting all this equipment working again so that I could do the podcast, and it sounds different. I'm wondering if the other position was more optimal for the sound that this room produces, but I feel like I'm getting a different tone, and it's annoying me. And I'm just hearing it kind of as I'm recording. I get a little delay in my headphones. I'd love. Are you hearing a difference? For those of you who've been listening for a while, if so, is it a good change or a bad change? Should I invest in more hours playing with knobs to try to undo what I've done? But anyway, so I thought I'd share that with everyone. Feel free to reach out. Best way to get in contact with me, of course, is the website. TheRebelBroker.com is the place. Hey, and I want to give a shout out to everybody who really... the show has not been coming out on a regular basis for a while. I mean, back in the good old days, it's had a ton of different iterations, right? It used to be once a week for 3 hours on Saturdays. That was fun. Then it used to be live for 3 hours on Saturdays. Back when I was on Blog Talk Radio, I would take callers during that stretch of time and answer real estate questions live. Side note, if you are interested in something like that, let me know. It's not something I'm going to be willing to commit to on a hugely regular basis, but if you would think there'd be some value in being able to call in and ask questions and have some dynamic back and forth in front of a larger audience, hey, let me know, and I'll see if I can't work something like that out. Technically, I know I can do it. Just not sure if there's a huge payoff for you guys, if that's a thing. Maybe just for Rebel Undergrounders. Yeah, maybe for members of the Underground, we do something like that. The Rebel Underground, you say? What the heck is that? Well, that is the select few who have decided to potentially be in communication with me outside of the show. And if you'd like to join, you can simply text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. That's text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. It just gets you on a list I will never sell or share, that only I use, and I do not send out crap, just so you know. Okay, we are heading into Thanksgiving week, and there's a lot happens come the end of the year. So I wanted to sort of run down the things I think are important for an end of year assessment. And this is going to apply to everybody. It's not just going to apply to those of you who own properties. It's going to apply to those of you who are aspiring to own properties. If you did not create written goals for yourself at the beginning of this year, then that's your first step. They shouldn't be huge things. It shouldn't be like, I will own, 6 homes by July. And it really depends on where you're starting from. If you are working through your process of becoming more comfortable with this, you may want to start smaller. right? It may be I will spend 2 hours a week doing real estate stuff, which could include doing number crunching using all of the online available resources to come up with estimates of value for properties, what you would offer. It could be you driving neighborhoods and looking for those properties that look a little neglected, right? And maybe look like they might be vacant, those kinds of things, to see if you can't make an offer to the person who does own it. Now, you'll need the help probably of a real estate agent in that case. Now, real estate agents can be a great resource, and it's going to depend on the agent. Oh, man. And you know what? We can have a venting episode today. I know we're only 6 minutes in, but boy, every once in a while, my faith gets restored. I had a great escrow about a month ago where the agent on the other side, awesome. Sadly, that's the exception rather than the rule. But it was a good experience, right? She took care of her folks. I took care of my folks. Everybody lived up to their contractual agreements, and we all went happily on our way. Doesn't always happen that way. A lot of agents will understand that there are many other agents who simply get stuff into escrow and then just like abandon it. And there may be specific deliverable things, right? Sign-offs that need to happen, releasing of certain contingencies, whatever. And the day will come and go and nothing happens. If you're the seller's agent, you have to poke people with a stick. So, I mean, I have an automated system now where when I've got something in escrow, I put it into this system and it will send emails to the interested party, and I can set it up however I want. Do I want them to get a notice a week before, a day before? And my answer to both of those questions is yes. A week before, emails will go out saying, hey, in a week, this is due. It happens every week on a specific day. Here's the entire timeline that's supposed to happen for the escrow with dates and everything, including cute little calendar things you can click on that'll add it to whatever calendar you've got. I think they call them those ICS files. But in any event, it saves me tons of trouble. And they'll get a week ahead, they'll get 2 days ahead, and then they'll get a day ahead. And it can be annoying, but I'd rather communicate too much and have them go, hey, dude, throttle it back. I get it. Than have it not get signed off. And that's a core competency in my world. So, and just for those of you who aren't familiar with the concept of core competencies, it's if you have a job description, there's a certain minimum bar that you need to reach. And if you're not, you suck at your job, right? A lifeguard, being able to swim would be a core competency, right? If you can't swim, you're not going to be a good lifeguard. Well, this is the kind of crap that you see with real estate agents. And there's a long list of core competencies, ranging from ridiculously easy, like photos on your listings in the MLS, right? Now, I share this with you not just to unburden my soul with the crap that I'm seeing. I say it because some of you may have an agent that you think's perfectly fine and is A-okay, but in reality is not delivering you what I would consider to be the minimum of service that you should expect from an agent in order for them to earn their commission. Now, don't get me wrong. Agents earn their commission all the time. I know I do. I believe I more than earn my commission. I believe I save my clients more than I charge them, right? My net contribution to the process makes my person more money than it costs them. That's my goal every time. And it should be your agent's goal. If you're interviewing agents, ask them, do you even give much thought to that? Is your goal to give me more value than you charge? And that's my goal. And we have that chat during the listing appointment. And I talk about the things that I do to try to guarantee they're going to sell faster than everybody else in their market. They're going to sell for more than everybody else in their market. And I guarantee it, right? And if I fail, I have to pay them money. So there's a metric that we can judge by. In any event, back to core competencies. We started with goals, right? Isn't this how this started? At 6 minutes and now we're at 10 minutes. We'll get back to goals, I promise. I need to unburden myself. So I put on my multi-unit hat over the last few weeks. I have been hardcore going after multi-units, 2 to 4, right? Multis. I've got a client who wants to do house hacking, right? That is what they're calling it, where you buy a multifamily and you live in one and you rent out the others with the goal of it paying for itself, not just paying for itself, meaning that you're making positive well, it's different math in some ways, but the goal obviously of a house hacker is to have their mortgage paid for by the other renters. So in other words, if your total out of pocket is $4,000 a month on your mortgage, then your goal is in rents to make $4,000 plus some amount of money, right? And the bigger that number is, the better. Oh, I also need to give you guys a correction from the last podcast where we were doing that rundown, I think, on Minneapolis. I'll save that to the end of the show. And I hope with any luck, I'll remember to do that. And I wouldn't mind doing that myself. I'd love doing that. The potentially, and this is a conversation I've had with long-term listeners for a really long time, where I've employed different strategies. For those of you who've really been around for a while, and I know there's a few, I was actually full bore ready to sell my house 2 years ago, 3 years, to the point where I rented a storage facility. I had moved tons of stuff to stage the house for selling, and got to that point. And the downside and the thing I hadn't considered was the emotional side. So I ended up making an emotional decision that I still question at times. But all my kids were still in the house, right? I have 3 boys. And at that point, all 3 of them were still in the house. And I think they were in their junior year of high school. And I realized, you know what? I'm creeping up on a time when my boys are never going to live in my house again. That they're going to only be around for Christmas and Thanksgiving and maybe to mooch money or to crash at the summertime while they're in college, right? And I was like, maybe I need that more than I need to sell this house right now. So that's how I ended up going. I ended up having that storage facility for a year, finally emptied it and brought all the junk back to my house. And now I'm kind of back in that mode. Now where I am now is all of my sons are now out and they are off to college or about to be. My oldest ended up coming back. He ended up dropping out of a school up near Seattle because it's a school that only did one thing. It only did computer science. If you wanted to program, it was called DigiPen, and that's all they focused on. Hardcore school, backbreaker. But when you came out of there, you had amazing programming chops, right? He was in his first semester, got towards the end, and realized this is not for me. Understood that. I actually knew that programming was not for him. Tried to explain that to him before he went, but I knew he needed to fail for himself, and not fail, make a realization, I guess, about himself. So anyway, so now he's going to be going off to Berkeley in January, and so once he's out, that's it. And the only time I need to worry about my sons being around is going to be summertime. So I am looking at all kinds of options here, and you know what? From a market standpoint, it's actually worked out. Given where the market is, I feel pretty confident if I was to put this home on the market in April or May of next year, I'd probably sell it pretty darn quick, and I'd probably sell it for a pretty good chunk of change. God, and I keep going off in the weeds. Okay, so returning to venting. Anyway, so yes, so my plans are moving forward, now what I'm torn on is I know how much I can rent my home for. I refinanced it earlier this year, and it's at 3.5%. So I have a great loan. If I were to rent it, it would be positive cash flow by a pretty good chunk of change. But the amount of cash tied up in this property is ridiculous. I mean, the money I could pull out of this, I could buy 4, maybe 5 properties in other markets that probably in terms of positive cash flow would net me twice what this place does, which is a topic we've talked about before, right? And this is an argument I've used to convince you not to buy investment properties in Silicon Valley or San Francisco, that your money can work better for you in other markets by making you more money per month. Now, in terms of appreciation, I'm in a market slice that tends to get slightly less than other areas. In my marketplace, I'm sort of just over the edge of luxury housing in terms of pricing. So I tend to enjoy less appreciation than other homes at lower price points. That's just kind of the way things tend to work in different markets here. So that's the question in my mind. I like the idea of keeping this house so that my kids can, when I'm gone, my kids can have it. But then I'm like, you know what? Screw that. Daddy needs to do stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm probably too sentimental actually when it comes to this kind of stuff. But anyway, so that's kind of on the horizon for me. In terms of what else we were talking about, in terms of venting, as I was saying, I've been looking at multifamily stuff, right? I mentioned the house hacking client. I'm also down for that. That's something and that's what got me into what did I do with my house, or what would I do with my house? That's something I would totally do if I could find a minimum 2-bed, 2-bath unit in a multi that also had garages. That I could do that, live there for a couple of years, and move on to a new property, and then have that as a rental property. So I was looking through listings. And here's the thing that shocks me, right? There are certain expectations that I think people have when they're working in certain markets. And I think there's this idea that if you are working with an agent who is in the investment space, where they really cater to investment clients, that these are better agents. These are agents that know more, are more efficient and more creative, more out of the box thinking maybe. And what I have found is nothing could be further from the truth. If the sampling of multifamilies I've looked at over the last week are any indication, investment folks who do listings, maybe these are agents who've never done investment properties before, and they're just ridiculously stupid about the subject. But for those of you who don't know, if you've ever done shopping for multifamily properties and you've ever gotten a printout of the listing from your agent, and I don't know if they do it on, maybe they do it on Zillow or Trulia. To be honest, I never look at multis on those platforms. I always look at it on my thing. But when you scroll down, if it says there are 4 units, it's supposed to list out each unit, what its square footage is, how many beds and baths it has, and what it's currently renting for. Well, I found one yesterday with 4 units, and none of the composition of any of the units was listed. Nowhere in this listing did it say how many beds and baths there were in anything. It was really ridiculous. It was written as if the agent didn't know anything about how to list a multifamily property. But in addition to that, it had one photo of the front that was a size of a postage stamp. So we're not even talking about a halfway modern cell phone photo. We're talking about like they went and bought the oldest digital camera they could find, like 98, 99 vintage. And that's what, I don't know how you could make a picture that crappy. It's like they went to extra effort to make a crappy photo. And when I say postage stamp size, I don't mean I didn't click on the thumbnail to make it big. I mean the photo was like 100 pixels by 100 pixels. And so when you'd open it up in the MLS, the full screen comes up to give you the full size of the image, and it's just this teeny little photo. And in today's world, even if you suck in degrees, right? Because there's degrees of suckage. There's this person who is just an idiot, doesn't put any information. How does anyone make any estimations on whether they should ask for more information on that property? Now, on the flip side, as someone who might be that person's customer, if I was a seller and I had that person, you can count on getting screwed. You're not going to make as much money. You're not going to sell it as fast. Most people are going to blow right by that listing. Now, I call on listings like that because I want to see how deep the stupid goes. Stupid is great if you're on the buyer side and the listing agent is stupid. It typically means you're going to be able to get that person on your side. Stupid tends to go with, they just want an escrow to close. They're not going to fight for the seller's price. I love that. That is where I love to rock and or roll. So, take that as a thing. So I emailed these folks, and what's even funny, there were 5 that lit these people are an idiot light for me. Just in the last 24 hours, 1 has responded, and it's been more than 24 hours since I sent the email. So I don't know what that tells you. Well, I know what it tells you. It tells you that these people aren't even on the ball. Are they super busy? No, I looked that up too. Not super busy. So at least in terms of what's in the MLS, in terms of the typical number of listings that they're carrying or the things they're closing representing buyers, those types of stuff. So the watchword there is be really careful how you pick your agent. We've had discussions about how diligent you need to be when you pick your tenant or when you pick your property manager. And the statistics show that typically someone ends up working with the first agent that answers the phone. Man, and I hope that nobody who listens to this show, I hope that none of my listeners let that happen. You know, treat it like you're interviewing them for a job, because you are. I know here in California, it's relatively invisible to the buyer, right? You don't pay the agent. The agent gets a commission that's paid for by the seller's side. But, you know, that person's going to get paid, and they're getting paid to represent your best interests. So, and if you're the seller in a scenario like this, it's even more important, because you're talking about negotiating the commission rate and all that kind of wonderful stuff. So I guess consider that the cautionary tale reminder. I know over the years, we've spent tons of time talking about how to pick your agents. If you would like to get my list, I think my tagline is like, here's the 21 questions to ask the real estate agent you might hire if you're a seller. I'll be happy to send that to you as a PDF, as a gift. It may even already be associated with signing up with the Rebel Underground. So sign up for the Rebel Underground. Text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. If that isn't what you get, just email me, and I'll be happy to send you that PDF for the questions that you should ask your real estate agent before you hire them. Okay, so that's the cautionary tale portion of this. Big Thanksgiving week, we'll probably talk a little bit more about what you should be looking for. I always get very retrospective towards the end of the year, and we'll talk more about creating your goals. What goals should you create for yourself over the coming year, and things that you can do to sort of move forward with that. But before we call it for today, let me go ahead and live up to my promise from earlier in the show and give you the rundown on what I screwed up in the last show. So if you listened to the last show, and we were talking about foreclosures, and we were talking about, taking inspiration from any kind of statistic to point you towards a market that might be interesting. And we did a rundown of Minneapolis. And we found a specific property, and I had done some quick math and completely screwed it up and couldn't figure out why there was a problem. Figured out why there was a problem as soon as I finished the show and posted it. I realized, oh God, I of course I screwed that up. So during that part of the show, I was talking about the rate of return, the return on investment. And I was talking, it was like 60%. Now I'm like, no, that's wrong. In my head, I knew that's wrong, but I didn't revisit it till after the show. The reason why was because I was only adding up for the year the total income, as opposed to, I was doing the gross instead of the net, right? So if you're making $1,000 a month in rent, that's your gross. Your net is that amount minus your expenses, right? So I hadn't taken account of expenses. I had the number after expenses sitting right next to me, but I just looked at the wrong number when I did the math. So just to bring you up to speed, if you've just listened to the other podcast, we were talking about Minneapolis, and I found that property. And after doing all of the math and looking at it, we were making in positive cash flow about, I think it was $540 a month. And I think I mentioned at the time, personally, I like to be making $500 a month on a property in positive cash flow. And that may vary depending on your goals. I tend to focus specifically on how much am I making versus the cash that I have wrapped into the deal, right? So the way you would do that calculation is take that amount you're making per month, multiply it by 12 to get your year total of income from the property. And remember, this is the money that you make each month after you pay for everything: taxes, insurance, mortgage payments, anything, upkeep, paying for a guy to come and do the lawn if you're doing that. Add that up, and then you take that number and you divide it by the total investment. And I think what we had then was out of pocket. I think we were talking about, like, let's see, I don't even have the numbers in front of me. I had them on a temporary scratch pad when we were going through all that wonderful stuff. But if I'm not mistaken, we had $540 times 12, which gives us the yearly, which was $6,480. And then we divided that by, didn't we say I was investing didn't I have $37,000 in it, which would be a 17.5% return on investment, right? That's really good. So I'm actually usually, you usually have me at over 10%. So I think that's a great way to go if that's how much money you're making on your investment. So I just wanted to clear that up. And I thought it might be good to sort of walk through the actual specifics of how you do that for folks that are new. I know you old timers have been doing this forever. So let me do this. Let me make a suggestion. What I want you to do is spend a little time before Thanksgiving. Just carve out an hour. I mean, hopefully you're going to have the day before Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving off. So maybe we'll talk about this next week, and we'll see and maybe get some feedback from folks. Sit down and walk through the process of finding interesting areas. Now, if you're stumped and you don't know where to start, go to my website, therebelbroker.com, and you can search all the old shows. You can just do a search on I don't know what, probably property search, do that. And I know over the years I've done at least a half dozen shows specifically on that subject. And usually the subject is a little bit mixed in all of the shows to one degree or another. But then just run the numbers, and there's a variety of ways you can do it. I've mentioned before that I use a little application called Property Evaluator. It's available up on the App Store on a Mac. I'm not sure if it's available on Android. I would imagine that it is, or on Windows. I would imagine that it is. Probably, I think they also have a mobile version of it. I don't use that. I use the desktop version. Another way to go is to get a membership over at biggerpockets.com, where they have calculators that you can use to evaluate investments. And the other way to go is just use a spreadsheet, right? Just throw the relevant numbers in there. It wouldn't surprise me if you were to Google a decent spreadsheet that you could find one. And maybe when I've got some extra time, I'll throw one together and post it up there for everybody to use. I'll post a Windows and a Mac version so that everybody can take advantage of it. Don't have that yet, but I think that'd be a good tool for everyone. And just practice. Just because you do it doesn't mean that you have to go out and then make that purchase. But you'll build your confidence in making that evaluation and take it a step further. You're probably going to do this using tools like Trulia.com, Zillow.com, Realtor.com, maybe even with the help of a real estate agent. Write that down. Create another spreadsheet where you do a summary where you just have the address, you have the date you found it, the day you think it was listed, if that's in there, your assessment of what you would have offered to make the deal work, and track that, and then wait for it to sell and see what it's reported on Realtor or Trulia or Zillow, and see if it reports what it's sold for. Now, your mileage may vary. There are some states like Texas where that information is not going to be shared publicly. I'm pretty sure, though, that agents in Texas can access this information. It's not publicly accessible to find out what people's homes sold for. So establishing a good, close relationship. And you know what? Here's the other thing. Find an agent. Let them know you're just beginning to build your confidence in becoming a real estate investor, and see what happens. I have clients like that I've been working with for a year, or 2 years, 3 years, some even as long as 5 years, that have never bought anything. They've never managed to get to that point, but I'm perfectly happy to have conversations with them, provide them with searches and those kinds of things, because frankly, it doesn't cost me anything to let them build their knowledge base. And when they're ready to go, I'll be ready to help them. So anyway, all right, folks, I hope that you feel like you've invested your time wisely today. The goal is to always give you far more value on the table than you spend in time. Absolutely hope we've achieved that today. Thanks again for listening. Think a little bit about what you're thankful for this year, and maybe we'll talk more about things to be thankful for as we move through the week. But thanks again, and I'll talk to y'all next time.